So in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to do the moss stitch, sometimes known as the linen stitch. It's basically one repeated row all the way through, so it looks the same on the back as it does on the front. Really nice tightly woven stitch, so really good if you're wanting to make baby blankets because there's not too many holes for little fingers to get through. So really lovely stitch. So let's get on with the video. Hello, my name's Karen Stangram and welcome to Conquer Crochet, the channel for tips, tricks and techniques for conquering your crochet. Everything I talk about in today's video will be linked in the descriptions below. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss a single stitch. So if you're keen to get going with this video, give me a thumbs up and let's do this. So for this tutorial I'm going to be using a double knit yarn. This is the Sheepies Colour Crafter yarn in the colourway Eindhoven, and I'm going to be using a 4.5mm hook, scissors to cut off my end and my wool needle to sew in my ends. So to start off I'm going to make a slip knot. You can do this in whichever way you prefer. And we're going to make a foundation chain. Now a foundation chain needs to be made in multiples of 2, so it needs to be in even numbers. So yarn over, pull through the slip knot, that's 1, yarn over, pull through, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So pause the video now whilst you make your multiples of 2 foundation chains. So if you want this to be a blanket, you make your foundation chain as long as you want your blanket to be. If it's for a scarf, then you would make it as wide as you want your scarf to be. So pause the video now whilst you make your foundation chain. So I've made my foundation chain in multiples of 2. I've decided for this sample I'm just going to do 20. We're then going to start on our first row, and we're going to make our first stitch, which will be a double crochet. That's UK terminology. In US terminology that's single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So we don't count the one on the hook, so 1, 2, we're going into this chain here. So with our double crochet we insert our hook into the chain, we yarn over and we pull that yarn back through the chain. We have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. We're then going to chain 1, so yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. We're going to skip the next chain and we're going to work in the one after that, and we're going to do another double crochet. So we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through the 2 loops, chain 1, skip the next stitch, working into the next chain, we insert, yarn over, making another double crochet, pull the yarn back through, you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both of those loops and chain 1. And we're going to continue this pattern all the way down, so you skip a chain, insert to make a double crochet and then chain 1, skip a chain, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1. So pause the video now whilst you get to the end of your chains, and I will meet you at the end of this row. So at the end of the row you should have 2 stitches left. We skip that first one, we do our double crochet into the last chain to complete that row. We're going to then do the next row, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work. So now we're going to be working into the chain 1 spaces. So if you just pull your work aside slightly, you can see where these chain 1 spaces are. So there's the space, that's the stitch, there's the space, that's the stitch, there's the space. Okay, so we've chained 1 and we've turned our work, and we're going to do a double crochet into that space. So we're not working into the tops of the stitches, we're working into that space. So you insert your hook, we're going to do a double crochet, yarn over, pull back through, you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the 2 loops, chain 1. That chain 1 is going to travel us over the stitch from the previous row to get to the next chain space. In that chain space we're going to do a double crochet, so you insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and you might have to pull it up a little bit more than you would ordinarily with a double crochet just because you've got the width of that stitch to get over. Complete your double crochet and chain 1. Skip that stitch and go to the next chain space, insert into the chain space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the 2 on your hook, chain 1. And we're going to do this all the way down our row, working into those chain spaces with a double crochet, chain 1 to travel over the stitch, ready to find the next chain space to do our double crochet. So pause the video now until you get to the end of this row and I will meet you at the end of the row. So I've come to the end of my row and I've worked into my last chain space. Now if we carried on from here we would end up with very wonky sides. So what we need to do is to do our double crochet in that last stitch from the previous row. You can see the V of that stitch, so we insert underneath both parts of that stitch, yarn over, pull back through, yarn over, pull through the 2 loops on our hook, and that's the end of row 1. So for the next row then we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work. Now again we're going to be working into the chain spaces, so we need to just pull those stitches apart a little bit so we can see those chain spaces, and we're going to insert into that chain space, yarn over, pull through, making our double crochet, chain 1, as we did for previous rows, skip that stitch, working into the chain spaces only, chain 1, skip that stitch, into the chain space, and chain 1, double crochet into that chain space, and chain 1. And basically all the way through all you're going to do is double crochet into the chain spaces, chain 1, all the way down your row until you get to the end. And when we get to the final stitch of that row, we are going to work a double crochet into that final stitch. So that's how it's looking so far. So I'm just going to do a few more rows so you can see how the pattern works up. So I've just worked up a few more rows for you to see how this stitch looks, and to me it's almost a little bit sort of boxy. It's like you're creating a box with those double crochets. It's a really lovely texture to it. Obviously it's the same on both sides, so it's a good one if you're wanting to make lap blankets or scarves where it might fold over, or it doesn't really matter which side you want to use. So that's how to do the moss stitch. I really hope you found today's tutorial useful. If there are any information that you need to find out about this video, have a look in the descriptions below where I post all the links to any freebies and other videos I think you might find useful. Don't forget, if you have enjoyed this video, to give me a thumbs up below. Don't forget also to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you've enjoyed it and you'd like to see more of my tutorial videos. There are 2 other videos on screen to help you on your crochet journey, and I will see you over there. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and happy hooking!